What's up, guys? I'm Daemonxel, and the devs did a AMA on the future of the game, where they answered all of your questions in a 2-hour span. And I know I'm a little late to the party on this, but I was feeling a little under the weather. But I'm back now, so let's talk about it. Alright, so we're going to go through these. We're going to go through them pretty quick, because I don't want to keep you guys here for 30, 40 minutes while we go through every single thing. But there are some points they bring in here, which does deserve some conversation about where we're heading and what we got coming. So let's dive right in and see exactly what the questions were asked and what the answers were given. First of all, they start right in with the economy, how it's being quite different, and even with the adjustments to gold, we are still getting that bottleneck. Is there any plans to readjust gold and XP in the near future? And the answer was yes, we are continuing monitoring the game experience on how the economy impacts that. They're aware that the gold and the character XP are highly restrictive for players pushing multiple squads, and they do plan to address it as the breadth of the roster expands. So as we get more characters, as we get more marquees coming in, they are going to bring in more gold, bring in more character XP to bring it up. Because right now, I don't know, guys, I'm hitting that bottleneck hard, and I keep looking at these marquees thinking, okay, maybe I need to do one of these 6 tiers just so I can get that 250,000 character XP to help the teams I'm already building push them forward. But they say they're not going to make a big move. They're going to do small, impactful, incremental changes. So it may feel slower than anticipated from a player perspective, but the process is done with that consideration in mind. So, as he rephrases, he goes, we are reviewing and monitoring it actively for what it's worth. We did action on the feedback regarding gold earlier. While it continues to be a work in progress, we do take feedback seriously and make careful consideration in our actions. So maybe we will get more character XP coming in the near future, because I know I need it, you probably need it, we all desperately need it. Next they jump into, is there any chance of Theoden could be added as a new light, large character with him being on his horse? Because there are no large units in the game for the light side. I know we have the 2 darks. Well, considering you got like 2.5, really, right? If you count Nuris's summons, yeah, it's 2.5. Other than that, you have Ironhide and you have the Troll Brew. So we have, those 3. Well, I like go at 2.5. Because you need the one to bring in the other. 2.5 on the dark side. And their answer to this is, we have talked about mounted units in the past, and it's something that they would love to do at some point. They can't do it right now. They say, there are lots of large characters we'd like to release first before approaching mounted units. And they say, too, and possibly a 5 versus 5 tactical team combat, there's a significant core fantasy about being on a horse that has some gnarly bits to be solved. So basically, they don't really know the mechanics of how they're going to do that just yet. Or, can they have a bunch of horses on the field? How would they reconcile horse-on-horse combat? But basically, yeah, it's on the back burner right now. They need to put other things, but it is something they have been thinking about. But what could you have as light side large units? Now, well, we know it's probably not going to be the Ents, right? Because they did say they wanted to do some what-ifs with the Ents. So, that could be a large character, but I think that's going to be more of like a raid down the line, because they talked about the Ents versus Saruman. So what other large units could you... I can only think of one, to tell you the truth. I can think of the Eagles, right? I think the Eagles would probably be the light side large unit to help out. And that would probably work in tandem with one of the variations of Gandalf that they put out. So let's go to their next questions. What could be here? More horse. Let's go back. Will there be a tool for squad management to be implemented? And it says that, yes, it is on their radar, but as all things, it's in developmental stage and has to be weighed against the needs, the other needs of the project. In the meantime, yeah, they want you to use the previous team's functionality in the raid, and I don't know. I don't really... The previous teams when I use it in the raids, it basically just gives me the last team, you know, that I used. And it's usually the last team I always use in the raid is just my throw together. I don't have a specific 5th team for my raids because I'm trying to push the other 4 that I'm working with forward a bit more, and that includes, you know, Rivendell, the full Rivendell plus Niramiri, the full Isengard team, the Haradrim, and then there is the Rohan 3 plus Halbarad and Strider. Until I build up another 5th team, it's just basically, you know, slap together maybe Ironhide with, you know, a bunch of other guys. But yeah, I don't really have a specific 5th team. But it is a quality of life thing that is, you know, it is needed. And they want to give us a chance to get bigger rosters first before we go ahead and do that. They want more characters, more teams fleshed out before that. And for my days of playing Marvel Strike Force, I do remember that game. It was a long time before we got squads implemented into the game, and I think it's going to be the same way here. I don't think we're going to see anything of this before 2024. So maybe next year we'll get the squads, but until then, just kind of bear with it, and you know what teams you're using right now. So let's find out what next they asked here. Oh, this is a good one. When will supply characters, you know, Alderaan, Goblin King, J.R.R, when will they be moved to farmable nodes? And I know they moved, they have it all over here, the answer here. Nick says, all marquees will go through a similar process of initially being available via the store, then later being added into supplies, and then being finally grindable location like a node. They don't give us when, but they do tell us that this week Legolas and Gimli will be moved to nodes this week, so that'd be great. I mean, that's going to come with the update that's going to fix the raid as well. But yeah, they go about it here too. They don't really give a specific answer. And I read these through it, and there's nothing. You just have to look at before. Okay, so Legolas and Gimli came out about 2 months ago in the marquees, and they're now just going to be going to nodes this week. It was a similar thing for Arwin and Elladan. So when they hit the supply store, basically mark it as you're going to see them in there for about 2 months. Because when they hit the supply store, we still had to go through all of Haradrim. We went through Gondor, right? And they're coming out. So now we have, you know, Lord Balin coming out, and you know, Balin's expedition, or Thorin's expedition tag, that's coming out, you know, in the next month. So yeah, you're looking at about 2 month turnaround after they hit the supply store. So let's continue on. See what other questions we have here. All right, I'm just going to kind of go to the questions about content. Like right here, they answer about soft lock issues of bugs and stuff like that. They acknowledge that there's stability and experience issues, like the soft locking. They are working over it. They said at a point when you looked at the patch over patch, they are prioritizing improved stability. But yeah, they're working on the bugs month to month. So I want to focus more on the questions about actual content coming to the game. Right here, this says, can we get a tease on who the next legendary character will be and what squad will be required for what? Fantastic question. I know we all think it's the Witch King coming out due to the data mines back early when the game first released with Haradrim as the unlock. But he does say here that I can confirm that there will be another legendary coming before the end of the year. Now, this is aside from Elrond, so you know, keep everyone on your mind for a minute. This is a brand new legendary we're going to see before 2024. And they say, as a hint, I'll just say that it's a character from The Hobbit. So, as far as I know, the Witch King was not in the Hobbit. Let me go to the trusty Google to find out exactly, because I cannot commit every little bit of lore to memory on this. And it says here, the Witch King had already been driven out of Angmar by troops of Gondor 966 years earlier. As of the adventure of the Hobbit, he was living in Minas Morgul and making Mordor ready for Sauron's eventual return. So yeah, he wasn't really in the book, according to this. in The Hobbit. So, what else could we have in The Hobbit? Well, obvious. Let's go to the obvious. Bilbo Baggins. Bilbo Baggins would be an excellent legendary. That would be a perfect candidate for one of the legendaries. It's going to be a light side. What else do we have? Well, we have Thorin. Thorin would make an excellent one, especially with all the dwarves we've been getting recently. That would be another good. That again, another light side legendary. I hope they would go, you know, light to shadow, like bouncing back and forth, so we have some kind of some balance in between. But you could go dark with one character. And I've watched some other videos and no one has actually thought about it or basically spoke on this, but Gollum. Wouldn't Gollum make an excellent legendary character? Because you can't, when you think The Hobbit and you think the ring, you think just the ring in general, and that's what this game is all around, is about these rings of power and your special ring. That brings images of Gollum foremost to my mind. And I think Gollum would make an excellent legendary. Now, yes, he is in the game in 1 or 2 battles, and he's not really fleshed. I feel like he's not really super fleshed out, but I think that would be an excellent legendary for this. So let's go ahead and go forward. Now, there was an article way back when, and the speculation that Isildur, I know I'm butchering the name, because I'm going off the memory here, was possibly going to be the next legendary, but then he's not in The Hobbit. So if it has to do with Hobbit, unless they're just using that as a broad, you know, The Hobbit, not just the book The Hobbit, but, you know, Hobbit, Lord of the Rings, and if they're talking about all of that, would that? I think what he's saying here, what Tim's saying is, it's going to be specifically from the Hobbit book. All right, so let's go to the next question here. So should we, let's see, how many different eras of Tolkien's lore does HoME have access to? We should expect mainly, you know, Lord of the Rings, Hobbit characters, content. Nick says, and they've answered this before in Tona's AMA with the dev, with Nick, and he said that while we were working on The Hobbit, they have access to The Hobbit, The Lord of the Rings, and the appendices, so that's plenty of characters and material for use, and that's not even including the what-if characters, right? Because the what-if characters aren't even in those. It's just something fresh. So, next question. When will Elrond be re-released? I know a lot of people are wondering about this. A lot of people are currently now refarming Elves to try and get that 6th and 7th star. Those of you just getting in the game of trying to get that first, you know, 5-star Elrond. So they do say 2 things we keep an eye out for. Is 1, is before the end of the year, and 2, sometime after the re-release of the marquees for Arwin and Elodin. So we've already had the marquee for Arwin, right? So Elodin will probably be next. We're going to see Elodin probably in this next month. I'm going to say he's going to be in this next month in October, along with the, you know, Thorin's expedition marquees. So I'm probably going to say that Elrond, and you can let's clock it here. I'm saying Elrond is going to be in November. That's what I'm calling right now. I'm going to say it's going to be in November, but it's definitely before 2024. So it's going to be either November or December. I don't see it happening right next month. But yeah, I'm going to bank on it's going to be in November. All right. It says here, can we get some more transparency on marquee, the farmable release timelines? I've been tracking these release dates. Arwin and Elodin took 75 days to become farmable on a campaign node. Are we to expect the same approximate 75 days? All right. Nick says, we have a framework that we follow based on factors including new character releases. As we've said previously in an interview with Tawna, we're still working out the cadences, and we haven't locked down a tried and true timeline yet. It's mostly there. So yeah, like I said, a little over 2 months, around 2 months, you're going to be banking on, and that's going to happen. So let's say 60 to 75 days turnaround for those characters going into farmable nodes. All right. Okay, this is brilliant. Shadow characters when? Yes, because we are moving into October, and October is, you know, Halloween, and Halloween is scary, and you should have Shadow at this point, and we are getting Thorin's company. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but I would have I would have guessed that it would have been Shadow on that. So, and Shannon says spooky season is the best season. That's not really an answer. Tim says it's a great question. Yes, we have focused more heavily on the light characters in the time since launch. Introducing more shadow characters is important to us, and I'll simply say get ready because we have some really exciting shadow characters coming before the end of the year. So yes, we are going to get them before the end of the year, and that's fantastic. We do need that. Next is, these are just a bunch of rapid fire questions. Okay, what is the max speed you can get from a full glyph set? How often do you plan on releasing legendaries? Can we get an XP calendar? When do we get loadout presets? When do we view other game rosters? When do we get key tracking? When green ability mats be farmable? When can you open up API access so arena teams can be tracked on LoTR.gg? And who is the CWC of LoTR? Oh, wow, that's a lot. Okay, I need to pause to get a drink because that. All right, now before I read the next question, remember that Nick said in Tona's interview that it was going to be negligible. It was the speed that you were going to get from glyphs was only so that you can tweak, maybe this character going before this character. It wasn't going to be a massive change. So let's see exactly what they're speaking on right here. And I need to speed this up because we're already at 16 minutes, and I'm sorry, guys. It says, okay, max speed. We are currently testing with a maximum of a 3 speed per secondary stack with a maximum of 5 stacks per glyph. Each character can have 6 glyphs equipped, which maxes out at 90 speed per unit on a perfectly rolled set of glyphs. Please note that this is the maximum, not the average value of players will regularly see. Our goal still remains to give players agency of their characters and squads, allowing each of you to craft a strategy for your teams that works best for you. So 90 speed on a perfect roll. That's a lot, right? That's jumping a few characters. So yeah, hopefully we're gonna see how it's fleshed out. When it releases, we'll check out the averages, but that's gonna be that RNG is going to be a bitch. How often do you plan on releasing legendaries? Legendaries take time to build a power before revealing themselves. Only time will tell, and so it's not really an answer. XP calendar. Character XP is on our radar and is one of the top priorities for moving the experience of players who want to grind multiple squads. We don't have an XP calendar planned, per se, but we do have plans to add additional XP in other places in the game. Change will come, give it time. So yes, like I said before, we got the gold change. We're going to see that character XP change. So there is light at the end of the tunnel. Loadout presets. Let's see. As people noted a couple times, there remains a feature that we're looking into the future. Okay, so it's not anytime in the near future. Don't count on it this year. They just want you to use the previous teams for your raids. Let's see. So when do we get to view others in the game rosters? We have talked through this multiple times, but believe it or not, this is actually harder. It takes more time, resources than you would think. Alright, so it's on the back burner. It's on their roadmap, but, key tracking. I feel a bit like a broken record here saying that we agree this is a big pain point, but we need more time. That being said, we are looking at taking charge. Change the way of We are looking at a change to the way raid keys are generated with the focus towards smaller guilds. In essence, we want to make sure that absolutely everyone can be running the raid 2 to 4 times per month. So that's great. So it may be on a sliding scale. Maybe we're going to be getting just a tweak to it. Does that mean if smaller guilds, right? Your max guild is 36. So say a guild of, say, 24. If they can be pulling it off 2 times a month or 4 times a month, wouldn't that mean that the other top? Well, no, because you still have the 7 days. So yeah, so it looks like it may be on a sliding scale. Maybe that if your guild isn't fully fleshed out, you'll generate more keys than a full guild. But I guess we'll just see when they implement it. Farmability of green mats. Let's see. They are intended to be rewarded for singular achievements, like finishing a final tier of a marquee. As for the leader characters that enter the game, epic ability mats increase. We'll add more. Because it doesn't really answer. It's just no answer there. API. Okay, so they are chatting with LoTR.gg, and they They reached out very early on, and let's see, I was a bad friend and bogged down with a bunch of wide work. Didn't respond as soon as I would have liked. That said, so they are working in hand with them, and eventually we will be getting that to that. Let's see what other questions they answered here. Let's see. Can you please implement a way to export raid scores so we can manage our guild scores? So those of you that are in guilds who are tracking this by hand, it would be I think a much easier way for you guys to just kind of be able to go into the guild management and export this out. Jay says, we hear you. Nick recently spoke about this on an interview. We recognize that there's some accessibility and management pieces missing from the game, and we are aware of them, and we put them in as soon as the release makes sense for them to go into. Okay. Let's see. People asked about Sam's Adventure. Will we have other player goals like that? With decent rewards, those kind of releases. And Tim says, glad to hear that you have enjoyed Sam's Adventure, A Gardener's Journey. We really enjoyed bringing this classic story from the books, including the jovial Tom Bombadil. As for future campaign-like adventures, we are very interested in chronicling many more nostalgic stories. That said, the length of the Sam campaign took a lot of time to build. For future campaign-like adventures, we're exploring a more condensed format so that we can provide more adventures. Okay, so don't expect something as expansive as Sam's Adventure, like the two separate tiers, right? And you had 3 chapters in each of the tiers. So I think they're probably going to scale that back to maybe like either 1 tier with 3 chapters or 1 tier with 2 chapters. They don't really say, but it's going to be smaller than Sam's Adventure. But in that way, they'll be able to work on multiple ones and bring more to us. So that's a great idea. Let's see. Complaints about the Haradrim, how they're not living up to expectations. When they were released, they were advertised as the premier raid team for Chapter 2, and they are underperforming as advertised. Okay, Jay states that one problem that Haradrim runs into is that they are a Bane-centric team, and because of this, they run into a lot of focus resist checks, so swinging up can be challenging until you reach a stat threshold. Another piece of advice with the Haradrim is that there are a few specific passives that really need to be invested in to make the team shine. Even so, we are constantly looking over all teams to make sure they are hitting our gameplay targets. On our internal dashboards, Haradrim are meeting our goals compared to other teams overall. Okay. Now, the person that said this, right? It says, to be clear, I have them all at 7 stars, nearly maxed abilities, and they are still not hitting the mark, but I appreciate the comment. So yeah, and we've seen this. We've seen a Wales team of Haradrim. 7 stars across the board, right? Gear tier 8 across the board. All abilities, as far as they can go, with the materials that they had. And they were being coming in behind a easily farmable Isengard team. So, it just shows you, bleed for Chapter 2 is king. Alright, let's see. They want to know if there's any changes to the platform, any changes going to the game due to the Unity platform. Nick says that the game in development is not affected, so don't worry, it's going to be the same as it ever was. The next question was about speeding up shard gains, for free-to-play players. How can they build up their teams faster? Nick basically says that the game growth and expands with new modes of gameplay. So basically, you're going to be able to earn more rewards that increase the pace of your collection growth. And between big new feature releases, we're also always actively monitoring the player experience and making sure tuning decisions accordingly. So it's still a work in progress. Next person asked about Gandalf, how it's so inaccessible. It's supposed to be a long grind, and if you're looking to get him in like 3 weeks of the raid, no. That was something that we said when the raid first came out, that to even buy his shards, you would need the mithril tokens, right? And you can't get the mithril tokens until you hit those last 2 target chests, which you wouldn't be able to do until you got that 4th chapter release. So, let's see. It says here, our perspective has always been that we make great endgame content that is aspirational to where our players' collection should be, and that aspiration is to reward folks who are playing the game daily. So basically, yeah, it's something that you need to chase after, right? It's not something to just, grab and go. They wanted this to be like a goal for you to hit, and that's why they put it that way. All right. Let's see. All right, the next question is about PVE content, more PVE content coming out that's not PvP central. Tim basically says that they have new exciting marquee adventures coming out, including stories of upcoming shadowed characters, like Lord Balin. Okay, so yeah, it's marquee. That's not really content. That's not what this person's asking for. But they're saying as far as new types of PvE adventures, it's something that they are interested in and considering. No plans in place currently right now. Nick chimes in, says that right now they are going as fast as they can to try and introduce new event types and new modes, but moving forward, it's going to be heavy into PvP in the future. Their goal is to open up some of the space with events sooner rather than later. But yeah, expect a lot of PvP things to come in the near future. Let's see here. All right, just to speed things along, I'm just going to blitz through some of these. This question is about legendary adventures. How many of they have floating in the concept team currently? Are they going to adopt any of the styles from Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes to the game? Tim basically says that they are going to be book-specific characters. They have 40-plus ideas for adventures, but the legendary adventures are going to be having that 5-person faction component, but they will, as I said before, bring out more story-driven styles, kind of like Sam's adventure. The next question here is about raids, future raids. What can we expect? Tim says they are going to they do have these big raids, but they also want to have some smaller raids like the Orcs in Chapter 1, but they want to delve into possible ideas for raids such as the Battle of the Pelennor Fields and Helm's Deep. Possibly maybe we'll see a Smog. I would love to see Smog in the game. Let's see here. Alright, this is an important one. How are Glyphs used? Will they have their own energy type, or will they use guild or normal energy? And Jay says, Glyphs will be earned through light and shadow campaigns, normal energy, as well as through opportunities in the supply store. So, you can just get these from normal farming. So that's going to be really good, guys. I'm starting to skip over questions that were already asked, but answer in different ways. But this one's good right here. This one is, you currently focus on the bigger parts of the content, and that definitely have some benefits, but I'd like to get occupied in the meantime. How about some smaller task quest events to spice up the experience? And Tim says, it's a great question. There are so many types of additional gameplay that we want to add to the game. Currently, our focus is on some of the big elements like the epic conclusion to the Mines of Moria with the Balrog. Our multi-squad arena feature is another large add that will certainly add lots of gameplay. As for smaller things to do, we hear you, and we are actively discussing ideas for new types of adventures in addition to future marquee and legendary events. As for the timeline, this is a priority to us, but we are focused on our big elements for now. So yeah, they want to push out these big things now. They're going to come in later with these small events that you're going to probably see month to month. Another question was, why was the removal of Arwin and Strider's synergy? Their duet attack seems missing in overall synergy. And they say here that we do love the relationship and is something that we explored initially in our designs, as evidenced by their team-up attack in the beta. However, our goals shifted as we moved towards the squad meta and synergies we have today. So basically, they wanted to have the Rivendell team, they wanted to have the Road to Rivendell team. They didn't want you to just farm Strider and not that. They wanted to have the two separate teams. So yeah, that's where they got for that. What else do we got here? I'm going to skip some of these. Like, who's your favorite character? I don't think, Another person asked about being able to track who's bringing in the keys for the raids as a feature, maybe just leave it for officers and the guild leader to see. And Shannon basically says that the team has mentioned it before, and it's on their radar. But in previous answers, and I definitely know that I brought it up to my guild officer, but yeah, it's on the back burner right now. It's gonna be one of those quality of life things that it's not really implemented right now, that they're going to be working on down the line, but it's not something that they're focused on currently. Let's see. Any plans to make the White Council team eventually? We know plans at this time. Plan to releasing characters, alternate ways of marquees. There are a variety of ways we plan to release characters. Marquees is certainly the most prominent way, as they provide an opportunity for players to unlock some of their favorite characters quickly. Beyond marquees, some of the characters will be released via legendary adventures, like Elrond and others. So basically, it's a legendary marquee. It's the same thing. And others released raids like Gandalf. Okay, so basically they have no plans at this time. It's the way they have it right now. Legendaries will have their marquee, regular characters will have their marquee, and some raid characters. Let's see. About progression, with the star change took place, heavy emphasis on players becoming, starring up their team ASAP. While gear tiers remain relatively important, the cost and gold-wise is much lesser than the reward. Specifically, G8 and G9 and presumably G10 are all extremely expensive and difficult to achieve on a very mediocre stat increase. Is the team planning to address the cost-reward discrepancy between gear tiers? If so, how may this be addressed? The higher gear tiers will yield, will there be higher stat gains with the higher tiers? Nick says, Gear Tier 9 and 10 are the pinnacle progression achievements in the game at this point. We expect those stats to make a difference in the top-end meta play. At this point, we don't have concrete plans to reconsider Gear 9 and 10 costing on a holistic basis, but we'll keep an eye on the overall economy. Okay. This person wants to know when Shograt's leader ability will be fixed. It says, Jay says, we've looked at this one in the past, and I believe that it is working properly. The tricky part of this, from a player's viewpoint, is that the leader ability's turn meter value is added right after we clear the turn meter for a unit's turn, and then the update to cycle speed for everyone on the field is done immediately after. It's extremely difficult to see the details during gameplay. Okay, that's nothing. This one talks about counterattacks and assists, way to track the damage. Dave says here, it's for them the behavior of the basic attack with slightly less damage. However, bugs do crop up from time to time, and we are actively investigating potential bugs with characters on the subject. Alright. Let's see if there's any heavy ones. I'm going to pause. Oh, this one. The Nazgul faction and the Witch King in the future, maybe. Would we see that? And the Mouth of Sauron for the Mordor team, please. Tim says, we are also big fans of shadow characters and realize that most characters to date have been light. There will be more shadow characters coming before the end of the year. I think you'll be quite excited, but we certainly are. As for the Nazgul, they are some of the most powerful forces in the Shadow and Middle-earth. They are kings of old, leaders of massive armies. Given this, we don't want to rush out these characters. They're definitely coming, but we plan to give each Nazgul its due attention as a critical leader in Sauron's army. So, those missions where you're facing all of them, all the Nazgul, right? That's not going to be the team. They're each going to have their own team to focus on. So that's really cool. That reminds me of basically this whole, like the on the Marvel Strike Force, how they had the Apocalypse characters come out, where yes, they each had their own team, but those leaders, those figureheads come together to form the Apocalypse team, a better team. So yeah, they could all come together and make the Nazgul team, but each Nazgul will have its own team as well. I just read through most of the rest of these, and I think we covered basically everything I wanted to cover in this, as far as future content goes, and what we're expecting, what we're going to see. So yeah, that's what we have right now. So we expect, more shadow characters before the end of the year. Elrond to return, another legendary to return. So yeah, we got a lot of information out of this AMA, and we're going to get more news this week about other features coming along. So I hope you guys found this video entertaining, informative. Again, if you guys like my content, if you could go ahead and give me a subscribe, give me a like, share the video. And, you know, if I don't talk to you beforehand, have a great week, have a great weekend, adventure safe, and good luck to you and your fellowship.